Welcome. This is David Boles, Human Meme. Today's topic, shooting the American West Western. In the 1950s, 1960s, and 1970s, the American television market was dominated by the American Western saga. Horses, farmland, old wooden towns, stagecoaches, maybe a train or two. Life was simple and the rules were few. Mind your own business. Don't steal anybody's horse. Prepare to defend yourself, rightly or wrongly, with a gun. We don't need to look far beyond the history of America to understand why the wild American West still resonates within us today. In modes of gun ownership, romancing the land, and a fighting independent spirit to be left alone. Mainstream broadcast television was inundated with westerns for 30 years. You could not escape the indoctrination. Wagon train, Maverick, have gun will travel, tracked, Gunsmoke, Rawhide, Big Valley, and so on 100 times over. Those television westerns were morality plays with rifles, dynamite, and pistols. Love stories were unimportant, and existential crises, who am I? What am I doing here? Were non-existent. It was all blood and guts and meat and potatoes, not a vegetable in sight. To understand the frailties of modern America, we only need to look back and watch, in anger, the message of the compartmentalized and the memorialized Old West. We ran out of room for expansion once we all hit the West Coast, and now, today, we build upward, on top of each other, and never outward. We've run out of land. And so we are conquering our best fears of failure by internalizing the ongoing colonialization of our worst dreams and our most terrible pauses. Some believe Star Trek, the television show, in the 1960s, was an updated version of the traditional American Western, but with spaceships instead of horses and aliens instead of Indians. How we explore and conquer new worlds and old lands is the center of many Trekker memes. What can we learn from Old West mendacity that still has the ring of moral mechanization in the advent of our modern everyday lives? Trust. Yes, there was a basic believability back then, romanticized for television or not, that you could trust your neighbor. You relied on your fellow townsfolk for basic survival. You shared food and information and thoughts and dreams. You protected each other's backs from harm, both foreign and domesticated. To not trust your neighbor was to set yourself outside the community and risk being totally on your own in the cold. My hammer was your hammer. Your nail was my nail. But my cow belonged to me. Faith. You not only believed in Jesus Christ and God above, you believed that everything would turn out well in the end, if you only kept the faith of belief. You fought against the sky, and the wind, and the rain, and the demerits of a tremulous land. And you stayed on course, you stayed on the line, you kept your head down and you worked, because that's the way it had to be to get everyone around you safely into the next day. You were on your own against yourself when it came down to the hard bits of living in the middle of the night. You knew if you always made the right decision in favor of your friends and your family, and never yourself, you would be saved in the end, or at least salvaged until dusk. Morality. You were bound to do the right thing, or risk being ostracized from the rest of your community. And it was the fear of being excluded that drove you forward and kept you and your family straight and honorable. Your word was your bond. No contracts were necessary. A handshake was enough. And if you were done wrong, you expected the person who wronged you to set it right. You didn't have to sue or get together a posse for justice. You worked to get yourself back to even, and your friends and your hard-won community would put peer pressure on those who were not playing the same morality game, and put them back in line. Finally, you knew, especially on TV westerns, that evil never pays. The bad guy never wins. Right is always set right. Goodness and kindness conquer everything. Now, the evil may live on into the next episode, and so. But evil is always wounded and diminished by exposure to goodness and by doing the right thing. And now, my, we wonder how far we have fallen from the values of our old TV Western days. And sure, many of those polemic totems are convenient and coincidental. But are they really? Wasn't there at least a shred of truth in reality in setting belief against the expectations of history? Were we not better and more complete as a people in the Old West than we are now? Or have only our memes changed? And now we never self-censor. And now we share every deviant thought and every action online with strangers without a moment's pause to reconsider. The community back then, in the old TV Western days, knew the dangers of exposure and overexposure, and they bound it all up, and they hid it away so that evil would not infect and kill an entire town because of the sins of the tiny-handed few. Secrecy, dishonor, and shame were necessary relevance that put more than one family in the ditch. One suffers, so the rest may rule. And in that sad universal reality, we come to understand the meaning of the unlucky and the cursed and those born with harrowed brows. Separation and a clinging judgment saved more towns and likely killed more people in private than any modern police action today might do in cleaning up a big city. And so, in the end, we may longingly look at the old American West and wish to a return to make us all great again. But there was an inherent, if undefined, danger lurking in all of us back then. And it was hidden, and it wanted to stay unknown. The undefined, unrefined threat. And that is what was good. That, the threat of goodness, was always perishing in the shadow of evil. And the best we could ever hope to do together was to save each other from ourselves. Thank you for listening. Be a human mean.